Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. One of the things that I try to do here on my channel and on my blog is to bring about different perspectives on homeschooling because I think that different aspects of it are going to impact different people. And there was an adage that I was actually thinking about today that brought me a completely new look at homeschooling that I wanted to share with you today. You know, just this new perspective that I have on homeschooling. How many times have you heard that saying, you are your child's first teacher? And the beautiful thing about it is that it is completely true. Whether you homeschool or not, you are your child's first teacher. But I think that that truth is something that has gotten lost today. It's something that we don't really reflect on very often. We seem to take for granted the fact that while our children are under our care as they are infants, they learn to do a lot of really difficult skills. They learn to sit, they learn to crawl, they learn to walk, they learn to talk. And if you even look at talking especially, they're learning how to communicate. That is something that would be considered very, very difficult, but it's not difficult because it's learned in a natural way. And we don't seem to recognize the fact that some of the hardest things our kids will learn how to do are things that they have learned while they were at home with us. And you know, our ancestors who lived before compulsory schooling, they looked at education the same way. You know, they didn't think of it as being a separate part of life or something that has to be done in an institution or, you know, by somebody who has a special degree. They realized that they could impart the knowledge that they had to their children. And while they were doing this, their kids learned the necessary things that were going to help them to become self-sufficient adults. And, you know, the really interesting part of this is that if you actually look back at history, studies show that before compulsory schooling, the literacy rate was actually higher than it has been ever since compulsory schooling was instituted. Think about it. We live in a world or in a society that is completely obsessed with the idea that parents are not qualified to homeschool their kids unless they have some sort of a degree or certification or some sort of other qualification that can only be attained by years of training in order to do that. That's not how reading was accomplished before compulsory schooling. I'm going to repeat what I said to you just a couple seconds ago. The literacy rate was higher, not just in the United States, mind you, also in England, possibly other places, but I know for a fact United States and England, the literacy rate was higher pre-compulsory schooling. It was higher than it ever has been since. So before teaching degrees, before certificates, before the Department of Education, before the NEA, literacy was higher. And who was teaching these kids to read? Mostly their parents. Their parents who did not have teaching degrees. Their parents who did not have certificates and were not members of the National Education Association. And this is something that we really need to start realizing, that just as our children are learning how to crawl, walk, talk, and all of these other things as they're developing into toddlers and school-age children, it used to be the same way with education before schooling ever happened. The idea of parents educating their children has become completely foreign to most people. They just cannot seem to grasp the fact that you do not need a special type of education in order to instill things into your children. And I just want to leave you, before I close, I just want to leave you with a little thought experiment or a little thought exercise. I want you to imagine a society that the government decides that you need to start sending your children upon the age of 4 months to a learning institution so that they will properly learn how to sit, crawl, walk, and talk. At first, parents are completely protesting. They're completely against it. They're all out rioting because they realize that their children are already doing these things at home. They don't need to be sent off somewhere by mandate in order to learn them. But over time, these protests die down, and parents, they start giving in because it's the law. They send their children to these institutions so that they can learn how to crawl, walk, sit, talk, all of the things that they were once doing very successfully at home. And over time, no one really even makes any sort of argument against it at all, because it's just the way that it is. A generation or two passes, and a few very perceptive people, now not most people, mind you, most people don't notice it, but a few very perceptive people are recognizing the fact that children are no longer doing these things as well as their parents and grandparents once did. They're no longer walking as well. They no longer have as good speech qualities. They just aren't doing things as well as it used to be before they were sent off to these learning institutions. So what happens? These perceptive parents decide they're going to start trying to teach their children these things at home again, the way that it used to be done and the way that it was successfully done. But not only do they have to push up against the pressure from the government who is trying to force them not to do this, they are also having to deal with the protests of neighbors, family, and friends who are all telling them that they are making a giant mistake because only professionals can teach babies how to do that. Think about it. Doesn't it sound familiar? That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work, you can support me on Patreon. I will leave my link for you there. And I hope you have a great day.